I know you were on the phone and you were talking about you being friends with Lucille Ball. How was
You want to
that?
do
Yes,
you
let's
want to
talk
start
about
with
that.
that?
Yes, let's start with that.
That is one of the cherished time periods in my life. So I got an opportunity to audition to play Fred Silverman. Fred Silverman was a pretty young man running, I think it was ABC first and then NBC. And he was like 22 or 24 or something, and he was the head of programming, which was unheard of. And Lucy was on a special on NBC. It's a true story. Fred Silverman surprised her at Chasen's restaurant. This was all worked out by Lucy's husband, Gary Morton. And Fred they convinced her to become a producer of sitcoms at NBC. And so they decided to introduce her to the audiences at NBC by dramatizing this surprise.
Right.
And they cast me to play Fred Silverman, and they cast Gary Coleman to be my first assistant vice president.
Oh, wow.
And so, oh God, there's so many stories I could tell. So I didn't meet Lucy until the first day of rehearsal, and I was very nervous.
Anybody would be.
Yeah, and I was waiting around in the rehearsal room, waiting for when is Lucy going to come? When is Lucy? I mean, I grew up with Lucy, so she was like a mega star.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, I passed this woman, and I think she's the costumer. This is actually a true story. I think she's a costumer. She's got like, slightly raggedy clothes, and she's got 2 big bags of stuff, and she's got blonde hair, which totally surprised me, and a cigarette dangling out of her mouth. And I walked by, and I nodded hello, and then I hear this voice. Are you Silverman? And I thought, what? I said, excuse me? She said, are you Silverman? Meaning, are you playing Fred Silverman? I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, that's funny. And I realized that was Lucy. Because what she did in order to do the show that we were on, she wears a wig, a red wig, and her hair was actually strawberry blonde. So I was really surprised.
Wow.
But we became great friends. We became very, very close friends. She called me a young up-and-coming star in show business and all that. She had me to her house the first day, and the servants were given the day off. So she's bending over, looking in the refrigerator for leftovers to cook for our dinner while we're going to meet and talk. And I was standing there, and I was looking at her, and I'm thinking, Lucille Ball is bending over. I'm looking at the back end of Lucille Ball bending over her refrigerator looking for leftovers to cook for me. And I was just like, and this was in the middle of Beverly Hills on a huge street called Roxbury Drive in a mansion, and I'm stunned. So she turns around and she looks at me, and apparently my mouth was agape. It was like, I was like this. And she turned around and she said, Hedy Lamarr. And I went, excuse me? She said, Hedy Lamarr. I don't know whether you know, Hedy Lamarr was a movie star in like the 20s and 30s. She was a Goldwyn girl, was a star at MGM. And Lucille Ball, in the early part of her career, was a Goldwyn girl, one of those long-legged dancers with the big headdresses and all of that.
Oh, wow.
And she told me a story. She said, when I was at MGM and I was a Goldwyn girl, she said, for some reason, in the bathrooms, they had no doors on the stalls.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I walked in, and Hedy Lamarr was the big star of the day. We all wanted to be Hedy Lamarr. And she said, I walked in, and there's Hedy Lamarr on the toilet, and there's no door on the stall. And she said, I had exactly the same face that you just had, looking at Hedy Lamarr on the toilet. And she said, Hedy Lamarr looked up at me and went, that's right, kid. There's not that big a distance between you and me. And I thought that was my first day with Lucille Ball at her house.
Oh man, that's such an impression.
But not only was that a great relationship, the people who starred in that special that we did were Donald O'Connor, Gene Kelly, Bob Hope, Johnny Carson. I mean, the huge megastars of my day. Johnny Carson did The Tonight Show for 35 years or something. He was the biggest late night talk show host ever.
Wow.
He was on the show. Bob Hope was one of the biggest megastar comedians and movie stars ever. Gene Kelly and Donald O'Connor were both in the musical Singing in the Rain and many others. They were magnificent actors, stars, dancers. I mean, it was heaven. Okay, one more story and then we'll finish with Lucille Ball.
Okay.
I asked my mother to come out because my mother grew up with all of them as stars, and especially Gene Kelly and Donald O'Connor. And I told my mother, all these people are going to be at the taping. Why don't you come out? So she came out, and on the day of the taping, we were rehearsing in the morning, and my mother was sitting up in the audience area, and it was the day before Thanksgiving. And Lucille Ball called me down and said, "What are you and your mother doing for Thanksgiving?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know. We're going to go to a restaurant." She said, "No, you're coming to my house." She said, "It's just going to be me, my husband, and a family friend. I hope you don't mind." I thought, I hope I don't mind. It's the 5 of us for Thanksgiving dinner.
Right.
So not only did we go for Thanksgiving to her house, they then showed us a clips from all of the best episodes of her show. And she told us all the inside stories of all the best episodes of the show. She said, "Oh, in this episode, Vivian almost drowned because they couldn't get the water out of the..." Anyway, she told us story after story after story after story. And when we left about 8:30, 9 o'clock that night, I pulled out of Lucy's driveway. My mother had a rose that Lucy had given her. And my mother turned to me and said, "I can die now," because she just had the best experience of her entire life.
Right. So, like, you never forget that.
That was an amazing...
Nothing can top that moment. Nothing.
That was an amazing experience. And actually, to the day that she did pass away, God bless her, she had a picture of her, Lucy, and me above her bed for all the years ever since that happened. So it was really an amazing experience. So,
okay. Well, that must have been like an amazing turnout for you, and an amazing turnout for your mom as well. She said, you know, she's got a rose from Lucille Ball herself. I would have just died myself.
That was one of the highlights. I mean, I've had many, many, many highlights in my career, but that was one of the highlights.
Amazing. I've just been looking at that rose. I probably would have put it in epoxy glue. If that was like a thing back then, I probably would have put it in some type of glue or some type of case.
I know.
And kept it forever.
I know. Okay, so I'll tell you one more thing Lucy taught me, which most people don't know. Once Robin Williams and different improvisational actors came into our business, it started to happen that the business changed a little bit. The actors were relied upon to make things up more than they used to. And Lucy told me, in the days of her series, every single physical bit she did was written by the writers. She didn't make up anything. All she did was interpret it. And she showed me something in her scripts. She had every single script of every single episode of her show leather bound on her bookshelves. Right. And she would pull a script off and she would show me a page, and it had a lot of writing, single type space. And she said, "Those are called black pages. Those are the pages where the writers wrote all the physical comedy." She said, "I interpreted it, but they wrote every single thing." Lucy gets in the vat of grapes and throws her leg over the woman's head, and they literally, the writers worked out all the physical business before Lucy ever got it in the script. She said if it wasn't for her writers, she never would have been as big a star as she turned out to be.
Hey, I'm pretty sure that was some of her as well.
Well, of course. Look, you can't divorce the personality from the actor. I mean, she made that work. But it is also interesting that the writers wrote physical business, which they don't do very much anymore.
Right. Because like I know y'all have to ad lib a little more. But I know back then you said that they wrote out all of the funny.
They wrote everything
that they wanted.
Which I was floored. I just was amazed. And she said you have to call black pages because there's so much writing on the page. It kind of looks like it's all black.
Wow. Because I know a lot of things, like, you know, a lot of people, this is like their life basically, so it becomes them. You play a funny role, you become funny, and it's just like this is your personality. Like it's like this, like Lucille Ball was Lucille Ball, like I Love Lucy was Lucy, you know. So it's just like amazing to, you know, see her be herself. It was like most likely you're on set and you're being yourself. Being yourself.
Well, it didn't hurt that she was acting in the show with her husband at the time. So, Jesse Arnaz, they were quite a pair.
Was he as funny as in person as he was on the show?
You know, I didn't meet him. They were split up by that point. And but she told me, I'll tell you a secret now that she's not alive. I can say this. She said, if it wasn't for too much wine, women, and horses, she would still be married to him. She said he was the love of my life. Yeah. But unfortunately, he indulged in wine, women, and horses, and it got to be too much for Lucy to bear.
Hey, that's
So
all right.
they split up. But yeah, she told me a lot of things, many things I haven't told anyone. She took me in her confidence for many, many, many evenings in her
And I
house.
know that was wonderful to be at
It was
someone's,
amazing.
be someone like that, her shoulder to
Yeah,
like lean on. That's amazing.
yeah, it was.
I wanted to ask you about the show when you played Green Goblin. How was that voicing for that? Did you like ever like get tired, or did you have to pause between breaks? Like, tell me how that was.
Well, you are talking about one of my favorite experiences of my life, being on Spider-Man and playing Harry Osborn, who was Peter Parker's best friend, and the Green Goblin. I was the Green Goblin in the last season. My father, the guy Neil Ross, who played Norman Osborn, my father, was the Green Goblin for the first 4 seasons. But
Oh,
part of what was fun about that was when I got the audition, the callback, they
mhm.
gave me a voiceover part for Harry, and then they gave me a part for the Green Goblin. And I thought, well, I know what I'm going to do for Harry. I'm going to use my voice, but young him up a little bit, make him a little bit more innocent. And so I knew what I was going to do with that. And the Green Goblin, I had a pretty good idea what I was going to do, but I thought the Green Goblin needs a laugh.
Right.
And I thought there was no laugh asked for. And I thought, I'm going to give him a laugh. And so I went in and I read Harry Osborn, and then I read the Green Goblin part. And then the last line was this, and this is what I did in the callback. I said, I'm going to get you, Spider-Man.
Amazing.
And at that moment, I saw everybody in the booth just perk right up, and I went, ooh, maybe I booked this part. And I did. So, and I think the laugh is what did it. I
The
swear the
laugh
laugh is
is
what
what
did
did
it.
it. The laugh is what did it. Every character has this one significant thing that they do. And I always feel like that most voice actors they ad lib a lot, and that's what really gets them. You know, that's
Yeah,
the
it's
little
true.
hammer on the nail right there. That's
It's
the
true.
ad lib right there, and it's amazing. And people eat it up. They eat it up.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Spider-Man, that was the first series I did. That was the biggest series I've done. I guested on a number of other series. I guessed on Defenders of the Earth and Little Pony and a bunch of things. And I had done Thumbelina already, but I hadn't done a weekly series. And what I found interesting, because I'm primarily an on-camera actor, and I have been through my life primarily an on-camera actor. I've done voiceover commercials and things like that, but not a lot of character work. And what I found interesting and education was I was used to my face and my body expressing a lot of the communication. And it became very clear to me very quickly that I needed to put the entire personality just in the voice. And that was an education. And working with some of the people that I worked with on that show, I was watching what they were
Great.
doing and learning a lot. One of the great things about that job was it was a new guest star every week. And every 2 or 3 weeks, we got Mark Hamill from Star Wars because he played the Hobgoblin. And
Oh,
we'd sit around and he told us all kinds of stories about Star Wars and all the things that have happened in his career.
Star Wars is amazing. That's such a big fandom there alone. Like Star Wars is just like this. It's like their own. It's like Earth and then Star Wars fandom.
It's a phenomenon
It
in
is.
itself, absolutely. But I can't say that I got tired. I loved the job so much, and we worked pretty fast. I have to say, they were one of the nice things about Spider-Man. Unlike doing most animated movies, is we all got to work together, and we all worked in one room.
Right.
And this cast was so good. Uh, uh, and so professional that we ran through those episodes pretty quickly, I have to
Right.
say. So I didn't really get tired. I just loved doing that job. It was fun.
Right. I know you have. I always want to be like an actress. Like growing up, like I watched a lot of cartoons and stuff growing up, and I'm wondering, I'm like, how do they do that? And I'm wondering, like, who are these people? And like, you never know. And it's so crazy because as growing up as a kid, you never like think to look up the work that is behind these characters until you're like older, and you're just like, oh, the nostalgia of everything, and you're just like looking back, I was like, oh, that's who did that. Oh, I love him. Oh, he did this too. Oh, I love that show. I love that movie. And then you're just like, oh, okay. And then the next thing you know, boom, you just know everything.
Yeah,
It's so much info.
yeah.
It's nostalgic for me because I'm only 23, And it just growing up and watching all of this stuff, and you just like try to recognize now who's done everything, you know, your childhood, who was the people responsible for your amazing childhood. That's basically it.
Well, and I will tell you that, you know, the best of the best are amazing.
Yes.
In Thumbelina, I got to work with June Foray, who was Rocky J. Squirrel on the Rocky and Bullwinkle show, and she was Nell, and she was Natasha, and she's all these different voices in that time period. And she was the biggest female voiceover artist for decades. And now I have the very happy occasion for many decades to be very, very good friends with Nancy Cartwright, who's Bart Simpson.
Oh, okay.
And she reminds me of June Foray because she's got such versatility in her voice. When I first knew Nancy, The Simpsons hadn't been created yet. In fact, I saw the first 5-minute clip of The Simpsons before it ever aired with the public because I was at Nancy's house. She said, let me show you this. They think they're going to call it The Simpsons. But at that time, Nancy was on 6 different series playing 6 different characters. I mean, she's a master.
She is. I love Bart Simpson. Bart Simpson is hilarious.
And she studied with Dawes Butler. I don't know whether you know the name Dawes Butler. Do you know the name Mel Blanc? Mel Blanc was like the voiceover king of Warner Brothers. He did Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and Elmer Fudd and all. He was the king of voiceovers. His equivalent at Hanna-Barbera was a man named Dawes Butler. And Nancy, when Nancy was a young kid, the only thing she dreamed about was being a voiceover artist. And Dawes came to Ohio, where she lived, and gave us sort of a summer class on voiceover, and she studied with him. He sort of took her under her wing, and she certainly has made quite a career out of her talent. But she's also worked hard at it.
Yes. Bart Simpson, and I'm not mistaken, I haven't watched TV in a long time, but The Simpsons is still going, right? The Simpsons.
Oh yes, The Simpsons has been going for like almost 30 years. Yeah, I don't know exactly how long it's been going. It's got to be one of the, if not the longest running, I think it's the longest running animated show, but it may be one of the longest running television shows ever because they're running, they've been on forever.
Down after a while, like after like 5 or 6 years, everything just goes away. And then you got The Simpsons, and then you got the Family Guy.
Yeah.
The longest running too I've ever watched.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. That's a show that just won't stop. So God bless them all. They're very talented. They made a real hit, huge mega hit.
Yes, I love the show. It's amazing. It's amazing. But I know you were talking about Thumbelina as well. Thumbelina is my favorite. I'm just gonna say I'm a big
Really? Well, thank you. I'm very flattered.
I've watched Thumbelina a million times, more than my hands could count. I could just sit here just counting them, just like, okay, I know the music, I know everything.
Well, nothing pleases me more than when I hear that.
I love Thumbelina, and I didn't know that Thumbelina is Thumbelina Disney? Thumbelina is not Disney.
No, and that's the unfortunate part of it. Thumbelina is made by Don Bluth, who was a Disney artist. He was a Disney animator for years, but he split off and made his own company, Don Bluth and Associates, and that's when he made All Dogs Go to Heaven and Land Before Time and all those different ones. Yeah, he's an old-fashioned hand-drawing animator.
My mother. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
My mother had those movies on VHS for years. We and my cousins used to come over. They used to come over my house when I was little, and we would play those VHS tapes on loop. Then you had to get the pencil to rewind it back, and then pop it back in there and just do it all over again. And we'd be sitting there jumping from bed to bed, just singing and dancing and crying and whatever. It's just emotional. Those movies are emotional.
Well, Don Bluth was a wonderful artist, and I really loved having an opportunity to work with him because he directed the movie too. He helped write it along with a couple of other writers, and he directed it, and he was the head animator. And one of the great experiences of that, I mentioned before, a lot of people don't know, but in most movies, and especially at Disney, the voiceover artists work alone with the director in the booth. You don't work with your fellow actors. And the director directs your performance and makes it what he wants it to be. And then in the editing room, he matches them together. But Don doesn't like to work that way. Don likes to have the actors work with each other. So one of the reasons they do it that way is they don't want any overlaps. If the voices overlap, it's very hard to animate. And Don just didn't worry about it. He said, okay, if you can take a second in between the lines, that's great. But if there's an overlap, he said, we'll make it work. So I got to work with Jodie Benson, who played Thumbelina, who also played the Little Mermaid. We got to work together for a whole week. And it was so much fun. And what Don loves is he loves the spontaneity of actors working together. And he's right. I don't think we would have been anywhere near as good as we were had we worked separately than when we worked together, because we really inspired each other. And it was just a delight to work with her. She was a sweetheart.
Right. I enjoy a lot of these animated movies and cartoons growing up. They made my day. You know, just coming home 8 hours in school, then doing an hour and a half studying, doing homework, and then boom, you just get to just relax and just watch cartoons for the rest of the night, all the way up.
I know. I grew up on cartoons when I was a kid. Boy, I was glued to that television on Saturday morning.
My mom used to come in my room and be like, ain't you tired of this? You done watched this a million times. And I'm just like, no, never. I'm going to die with these. Like,
I know.
I'm going to be like, on my deathbed, it's going to be like right on my pillow. Like right
there. Yeah.
So it's just like, amazing to hear from it all.
Well, one of the other things that was fun about Thumbelina was getting to meet and work with Barry Manilow, who wrote all the music. And I think he wrote a beautiful score. There's one song which I didn't get to sing called Soon, which both Thumbelina sings and her mother sings in that movie, that I think is just one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. But getting to meet Barry, and when he was introducing the song "Let Me Be Your Wings" to me, he invited me over to his house in Bel Air on the top of a mountain.
Really?
Yeah, and I got to go to his house, and I'm driving up in my little Honda wagon, and that's just a gorgeous estate that he had, and it was really on the top of this hill or mountain in Bel Air. And I go and I knock on the door, and he says, come on with me, we're going to go into the studio, which was a whole separate building. He had a whole separate building built, and he took me down the staircase into his studio, which was lined with gold and platinum records that he had produced, because at that time he was one of the biggest pop stars ever. Wow. And he played the song and sang it for me. And I'm sitting there, I mean, between meeting Lucille Ball and getting to know her as well as I did, and then being able to be in Barry Manilow's studio while he's singing the song I'm going to sing in this movie was just like, oh my God. And it was astounding.
Oh, I know it was. That would have been like, my mind would have been blown. I was just like, just pick me up off the floor because I didn't fail. And I can't get back up because this is amazing. My mind would be.
Yeah, and one of the funniest things about Barry, and I didn't realize it because I grew up on his music, and it was certainly as I was a teenager, and he's an amazing singer, but I didn't realize how amazing he was because he sang Let Me Be Your Wings, which changes key once or twice. It may change keys twice. Barry Manilow is famous for changing keys, continuing to increase, go higher and higher and higher in his songs. Right. And what I didn't realize was I took the song home, and of course I had to learn it and sing it myself, and it was really hard, much harder than it sounded like when Barry sang it. And what I realized was he has a phenomenal voice because no matter how high he goes, it never sounds like he's singing high. He really has a special voice. And we went back and forth, actually, after I sang it, because I said, boy, Barry, I said, that last key is really tough.
Right.
The end of the song is really tough. And he said, let me fool around with it and let me see what I can do. Maybe I can transpose down, but it'll sound like it's transposed up. And we went back and forth for about 2 weeks. And one day I was at home in my apartment in Hollywood, and the phone rang, and I picked it up, and he said, Bear. And I thought, oh my God, Barry Manilow is calling me Gare. He's saying his name is Bear. And he fooled around with transposing, and it didn't really work. And I just turned to him on the phone and I said, Barry, look, I said, I will figure out how to sing this in the original key as you wrote it, because that's really the way it should be done. And I hate to admit it, but it took us 21 takes to get the song right and get it perfect. But we did get it right. We did get it right after 21 takes.
Yes, yes, yes. I love the movie. The movie is special. It's so wonderful. My favorite song on the movie is when she met the Hispanic frog.
Oh yeah.
Just like, oh, I can't keep up with what she's doing, but I could just be like, okay.
Oh, that is so funny. I know. And Charo, who you probably don't know, who Charo was, but she played the frog's mother, and
really?
and she's a famous American Spanish star, very famous. She used to be on all the talk shows and stuff in the 70s and 80s, and
Right.
she's a very, very extroverted, wild personality. I'm not sure she's still alive anymore, but she's very funny in that movie.
Yes, it was amazing to see. And then the other one, my other favorite, but the one thing is that's my favorite part. And then but my favorite scene was when Thumbelina it's like when she finally got met back with him.
With me. Oh yeah,
with you. And
the
then,
reuniting.
Yeah, the reuniting was amazing. And I was just like, oh, I'm just sitting there crying like she finally found her, because you like frozen ice. And I'm just like, oh,
That's
he's
right.
not gonna make it.
That's great. Yeah, I actually wish that movie had been a Disney movie, only because they never got the public relations, promotion machine behind that movie the way Disney promotes their movies. Disney is amazing in terms of their promotion. Had that been a Disney movie, I think Let Me Be Your Wings probably would have won the Academy Award that year, because I think that song is stunning. It was up for an Academy Award, but it didn't win. Something else won. But yeah, I wish it was a Disney movie. But I'm always very happy to hear when somebody loves it. Yeah, it's great.
I love it. It will always have a special place in my heart.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
I also, when I was doing some more information on you, looking up other things for us to talk about, I also saw that you did the Sweet Life, Zack and Cody. What did you do on Sweet Life, Zack and Cody?
I did a one scene part. I played a doctor. I don't even remember it very well, to be honest with you. And I didn't know anything about the Sweet Life of Zack and Cody when I did it. And it was kind of fun to learn, that there was a whole cult following and a big, that this show was way more popular than I had any idea. And those two twins were really, really popular. I have a casting director who's a friend of mine, and she called me up one day and she said, I have a part for you if you want it. I said, sure, what the heck? Wow. So I went and I played a doctor in The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
That was my favorite. Did you ever get to meet the twins?
Oh yeah. They were in, I think they were in the scene for a minute. And yeah, we talked. I hung out on the set all day and got to know everybody, and it was fun. It was fun. It was a fun show.
They were amazing. And I also saw you did Buffy the Vampire Slayer as well.
I did. I played a teacher on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yes, I've ended up being in a number of classic series and really, really popular series. I guest starred on a lot of series in the 70s and 80s, and then did these in the 90s, I think. I don't remember when Sweet Life, Zack and Cody was. But
I want to say Sweet Life and Zack Cody was like maybe early 2000s.
Early 2000s, yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did.
I basically grew up with them.
I understand. I did. I did both those shows. They were fun.
Yeah, I don't think I really got much around to watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I maybe watched a few of her episodes, but I never really watched it much.
Yeah.
But I did watch some of it. That's why I had to ask, like, what role did you play in Buffy? And you were the teacher, so that's amazing.
I was a teacher.
I know you had a lot more fun in your career, and this is just amazing to talk to you. That I get a chance to talk to you, especially now.
I was on a show that you probably don't know. Well, I was on a lot of shows that you don't know from the 70s. The two that I remember the most were, I was on what has become kind of an iconic episode of Barney Miller. Have you ever heard of the series Barney Miller?
Mm-mm.
Ran for 7 years. It was set in a precinct station in New York, and there were a bunch of cops, and it starred Hal Linden. And I actually played a missing monk, a monk. Well, I'll tell you the story. Our minister, the head minister of our monastery, shows up at Barney Miller and says, I was bringing boys up to take their final vows to become monks, and one is missing.
Right.
And so the show is all about looking for me, and they find me in a hotel with a hooker, about to have my last fling before I may take a vow of celibacy and become a monk. No. They bring me into the station, and they bring the hooker into the station, and most of the episode is us being interrogated as to what almost but didn't happen in that hotel room. And then Woj Jahowitz, who played a cop on the show, and he played by Max Gale, he takes a liking to me and kind of feels bad that I didn't get to consummate my last fling before I take my vow of celibacy. And he concocts this reason at the end of the episode that he's got to hold me at the station. And then he releases me so I can go finish my encounter with my hooker in the hotel in New York. So that was one of my favorites.
Right. I noticed like a lot of the other shows. Is there any other show that you would like to inform about? Like I know you did a lot of, like I told you on the phone, they were vintage. I call them vintage. Vintage TV shows.
I'm in a lot of vintage shows. It's true. Well, there's two experiences. One, I was on a number of episodes of a show called 8 is Enough, which starred Dick Van Patten was the father of the show. And this was a father with 8 kids and no mother. And then eventually he meets... oh God, her name just went right out of my head, and she became a very big musical theater star. Oh, it'll come to me. Anyway, she becomes his young wife and takes care of these kids. And I guest starred in a number of seasons. And every season I played a younger character. I would be the boyfriend of one of the daughters. And the next season I was the boyfriend of the younger daughter, because I looked astoundingly young in the early days of my career. I played high school kids on television till I was 32 years old.
Oh, wow.
And so I kept getting younger and younger and younger. And the final season that I was on, I was the drummer in Willie Ames' band. And Willie Ames was the second youngest kid on the show.
Oh, wow. So what did you do to keep your look of being so young?
I don't know. It's partially genes. My mother was very young looking. My father was pretty young looking. It was also my size. I'm only 5'6", so I have and I have a really youthful energy. And I've never looked my age. I've never acted my age. I've never felt my age. So oh, you have a cute little dog.
Oh, sorry.
He looks like Toto in The Wizard of Oz.
Like Toto. Oh my goodness.
So I played a lot of youngsters. I remember doing a pilot for an episode, and I was playing 16, and I was 32 years old. And the girl I was playing opposite was playing 16, and she was 32 years old. And then the actress they hired to play her mother was 32 years old.
Oh, wow. Wow, so, that's amazing to be older and then look so young, to carry that. It's like it just goes on forever.
Yeah, my other favorite experience was I played with one other legend. I starred opposite a man named Milton Berle, who when we talked, you didn't even know who that was, and I don't blame you. He was considered Mr. Television in the early days. He had one of the first series on television. He came from vaudeville. He was an extremely, like a mega star. And he of course, had, enormous ratings because there were only a few shows on television. And he had enormously high ratings. Well, in his older years, they created this show, which didn't sell as a series, but we did the pilot, called Moscow and Vine. And it was basically, he played an old man who had an old music store at Hollywood and Vine, and I played a Russian immigrant who walked to the store one day and talked to them about they need the new music. and I played, I think his name was Georgi, but I don't remember his first name. But working with Milton Berle was extraordinary because he was really, really, truly, between Lucille Ball, Milton Berle, and maybe like Bob Hope, they were legends and megastars. And he was a very nice man to work with. He loved me. We were the two stars of the series. We had a ball. And then we had a man named Jackie Cooper who directed the show. And Jackie Cooper was a very big star. And so that was just, we had a ball.
I understand. Hey, that sounds like a ball that I would love to have been in your shoes for like 5 minutes, just to be in your shoes. Trust me. And I think anybody would, because, you know, you look at this stuff and you look at people on classic TV shows and you're just like, oh, I want to be that person one day. You know, like what would you call like a motivation, or, you know, just to look up to someone. It's just amazing. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I came to a realization recently.
That's the word I was
Yeah, that's right. I came to a realization recently, which I never really realized while it was happening because there was nothing to compare it to. I mean, now there's something like over 450 television series on television because there's all these cable stations and all these different offshoots. In the days when I was guest starring on television and doing pilots, there were only 3 hours a night of television on 3 different networks. That's all there was. So there was 9 hours of television a night for 5 nights a week, maybe 6 if Saturday or Sunday had series. So that's really 9 hours of television over 5 nights a week. That's 45 hours of television. That's all there was. And I didn't realize, to have been cast many, 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 many times as a guest star and having been cast as a lead in pilots, when there's only 45 hours of television a week, that's quite a feather in my cap, where now there's 450 some odd series on television.
Right. You can just flip through and just find anything.
There's more jobs out there than there were.
Right.
So anyway.
Right. So I know a lot of things that you have done. So you've worked with a lot of people. So what do you think was your most favorite moment besides the Lucille Ball Thanksgiving dinner?
I would have to say my next favorite moment was working on The Green Mile with Tom Hanks, which I didn't have a very big part, but it ended up growing into this longer experience than I expected. I was hired to be one of the witnesses in the execution of Dell, when he bursts into flames on the electric chair. It's a big Stephen King horror moment. And what happened was, we were supposed to be hired for 3 days to do that shoot. We showed up on Monday morning, all in costume and hair, and we didn't shoot Monday. And we waited until like 10 o'clock at night. We went into all kinds of overtime and meal penalties. Showed up Tuesday in makeup and hair, didn't shoot our part all Tuesday. We're supposed to be done on Wednesday. We shot Wednesday. We didn't do anything. It ended up growing into a 5-day shoot, and they didn't get to our part until 11 o'clock at night on Friday night.
Oh, wow. So you just had to sit and wait?
But what was fantastic was I was able to watch all these wonderful actors work. Jamie Cromwell was on that show. Tom Hanks and I talked a number of times. And he is a wonderful man. He is truly, working with him is exactly what you would expect. He is a very unassuming megastar. I mean, when I worked with certain people, the temperature of the air and the whole activity in the air would change when the star walked in the room, because they were very intimidating. And so the first day on the set of The Green Mile, we were going to do a cast reading. Everybody was going to do a table read of the movie. And I was waiting for Tom to show up because he was the big star. You know, there were other really wonderful people in the movie, but he was the big star and I'd never met him before. And I'm waiting. And I finally said to somebody, because it was like 20 minutes past the time we were supposed to start. And I said to somebody, when do you think Tom's going to get here? And he looks up over my shoulder and he goes like that. And I went, what? And Tom was standing right behind me and he'd been there for like 20 minutes. I didn't even know he came in the room. That's how unassuming he was.
Oh, wow.
And he really had no diva dramatization. I've worked with a lot of divas, and Tom just was a really nice guy
Down
who
to
had
earth.
a complete, had a, yes, completely down to earth, but had an understanding how good he was and how powerful he was, but just didn't have to lord it over anybody. I mean, I
Right.
was truly impressed. It was
I
really
love
an
all his
education.
movies. I love
Yeah,
all his
he's an astounding talent, just an astounding man and an astounding talent. It was really a joy to work with him. And one day on the set, not only was it a joy to work with him, but Steven Spielberg decided to come by and watch us shoot. And so Steven just sat there and watched us shoot all day. I don't know what he was doing there.
Oh,
And
I would have been so nervous.
I wish
Surrounded
I
by
had
so
taken
many
the
people.
opportunity. Yeah, I wish I'd taken the opportunity to go speak to him, and I didn't. But it was amazing just to watch him watch movie making, and that was
Just to
fantastic.
be surrounded by so many people, and you yourself becoming an artist, and it's amazing. It really is. It's amazing. You just gotta sit and just watch. And I wish I could be in your shoes. I really do.
Well, you asked me about why I
You
played
know.
so young for so long. I have to say, I think part of what keeps me young and keeps me enthusiastic and energetic is I've been living my dream. My first professional job was a Broadway show at the age of 19.
Oh
And
wow.
I got cast off the street in an open audition. 6 callbacks later, I signed my professional contract at 19. And
Oh
to live a life where you get to live your dream and keep your hand in the business.
wow.
Thanks to the coronavirus,
Thanks to
and
that.
that's a funny, isn't that a funny expression? Thanks to the
Right. Thanks
coronavirus,
to Corona.
I've actually started to teach online.
Oh
I
wow.
have in-person classes in Los Angeles. They're called the Professional Artists Workshop and the Musical Artists Workshop. I
Hmm.
teach acting to actors and I teach acting to singers because
Oh
I started
wow.
as a singer. But I also have started some online classes now with both teaching actors in one class and teaching acting to singers in another class.
Awesome.
And now I'm teaching people all over the country and all over the world.
Hey,
So
hey,
I
that's
could teach
amazing.
you and you wouldn't have to leave your apartment.
Wouldn't have to leave.
So we should talk because
Yes, we should. That
I
should be
really
amazing.
like I really have a passion for helping artists, and I really have a passion for especially helping people open their world to this world of acting.
Awesome. I'm a more recent person who got into a lot of things. I've got my friend introduced me to a lot of new things that I wasn't really interested in maybe a year ago, and I've only, been, just to open. It's just an eye opener, and just to hear people say, "Hey, well, I need somebody to talk to about this, so I'm going to make this here." So he just showed me a lot of things, and some people we call it weird, but it's just amazing to be around. They say,
Well, there is a woman. She's now no longer alive. Catherine Houston, I think was her name. She
mhm.
played the president's secretary on The West Wing, and then played some character and won 2 Emmy Awards for what was the name of that series? Desperate Housewives. And
Okay,
that woman started acting when she was 55, I believe. She
really.
started acting when she was 55. So it's never too late.
Okay, okay. I know Lucia Ball had a best friend. She had a female best friend. I can't think of her name.
The actress who played her best friend on the series was Vivian Vance.
Yeah. So, what was your initial motivation? Like, do you ever remember okay, what was the day that you decided to say, "Hey, this is my dream"?
That's a very good question because I was interested in acting from the earliest time I can remember. I produced a play on our doorstep when I was 4.
Oh,
Called The Shoemaker's Children, and
oh,
my
you
neighbor,
remember?
my best friend, Sarah Knopp, lived kitty corner across the street. Her mother was the star of the community theater in our town. This was in
Hmm.
Wisconsin, where I was born. And we produced a play on our doorstep. But the moment when I really decided this was what I wanted to do was in the 5th grade, when I starred in The Mikado, which is the Gilbert and Sullivan operetta, and I was playing Coco, the lead. and the high school kids were fawning all over me with makeup and costume, and I went, oh, this is a good life. This is what I want to do. So
Right.
I made the conscious decision when I was, I don't know how old, third grade. What am I, 8? So something like that. I said, this is what I want to do. And I got involved in every single play, every single skit, anything I could get my hands on. Community theater. I started doing community theater when I was 10. When we moved outside of Boston to Acton, Massachusetts, I got involved in that community theater. I did every piece of performing I could possibly do.
Right, right. I know that was a joy to just be, you know, say, hey, I want to be the star of the show. I don't know about who you or you, but I want to be in.
That's kind of what happened when I was in 5th grade, I have to say.
Awesome.
Third grade, not 5th grade.
Third grade.
Yeah.
As a young, I don't even think I even paid attention to that growing up because I just know I play.
It's funny because I have a 15-year-old son and he has no idea what he wants to do. He has artistic pursuits. He has intellectual pursuits. He's very into the outdoors.
Young.
Yeah, he wants to become an Eagle Scout, but he's 15 and he doesn't know what he wants to do with his life. I knew what I wanted to do in my life from the time I could speak, and I don't know why I knew that. I mean, it helped that I grew up
naturally for most people.
Yeah, I grew up in an artistic family, although none of them were pursuing it as their career by that point. But my father was a professional trumpeter in big bands before the war. My mom was a USO singer. My brother became a rock drummer and then a rock manager, and then he gave that up. And my sister was very talented artistically. So I grew up singing with my mother from the age of like 3.
Right, you were just born into it.
I kind of was. Kind of was.
And you know, this is to be as young as your son, you have so many choices, and you have forever to decide, you know, whatever you want to do, because the world is endless now. You know, for us teenagers and young adults, the world is endless. You get to choose whatever
That's true.
you want to be.
That's absolutely right.
So much time. I miss being 15.
Yes, you're so much older. My God.
I'm not that much older, but I do miss it.
Well, I know when you're 22 or 23, it feels like 15 was like a lifetime or two ago.
Forever ago.
I know.
It's like my teenage years just said, bye, I'm gone now. Yeah. Now, I have a question about being an upcoming artist. Do you have to know how to sing? Like carry on?
No, it depends upon what you want to do. Why, do you not sing?
I can't sing a lick.
Okay, so now I'm going to tell you another thing. You've hit a passion of mine.
Oh, man, okay, let's sit up. Okay.
Now, it's another story. So, I don't believe that tone deafness exists. I don't believe that people who can't hit a note can't learn to hit a note. And I've proven it. When I married my wife, she's a lovely woman. She's a commercial real estate broker. She's also a stand-up comedian, and we met in acting class. And when we got married, she was cast in a play in she's from Beverly Hills. She was cast in a play by the East West Players, and she was playing a homeless woman. But at the end of the show, and my wife is Jewish, at the end of the show, everybody sings the Christmas carol. It was a Christmas play. Christmas carol, Silver Bells. Well, my wife was Jewish. She didn't know any Christmas carols, and also she was tone deaf, she thought. And other people had told her she was tone deaf. And I have to say, when she would sing, she would not sing the note that was there. She would sing any note that kind of came to her. And I can see why people thought she was tone deaf. So I took on the challenge of teaching her how to match pitch. And I proved to her and to myself that anybody who can't sing can be taught to sing if they have the patience, because tone deafness is not a condition that cannot be cured. So anybody can be taught to sing.
Yeah, I have a friend, she loves to sing, and she was in the choir for a long time, and she told me a lot of things, like people who couldn't sing learned how to sing. And I was like, I wonder if I can do that. I can practice one day. So
she's right.
Hearing that you yourself can actually prove that.
Yep, she's right. She's absolutely right. And I kind of have a passion about it. It's not something I really want to do on a regular basis because it takes a lot of time and a lot of patience, but anybody can learn how to sing if they want to.
Okay, okay.
It's really easy to teach somebody who's a kid because
right.
kids love repetition games. Adults get bored with repetition games, and there's a lot of repetition in learning how to sing and learning how to match pitch. I'm working with an older man right now on it. He's kind of a pet project of mine. Yeah, because I think he's got potential. But anybody can learn how to sing.
It's just amazing to talk to you. To talk to a person that has reached every goal in their life, and it's motivation. It's motivational to talk to you and to actually speak with you on a level, because usually when you go to like cons and comic cons and stuff, and like people who are also voice actors show up, and you get to meet those people, but you know, you don't really get a chance because it's like you one person to like 300 people in line waiting for an autograph or to say, even just say hi, just so we walk past the table and like, hello.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing to get this one-on-one with you.
Yeah, well, thanks. You know, I thought of one other experience, because I don't talk about my early musical theater experience in New York very often, but there is one experience I had. Do you know who Bob Fosse was?
No, but the name does sound familiar.
Well, there's a series on TV called Fosse and Verdon, which is about him and his wife. Gwen Verdon was a big musical theater star, and he was a big musical theater actor, dancer, and then ultimately director. And there's a movie called All That Jazz, which is kind of the story of his life. Roy Scheider played him. Well, he was a mega star on Broadway as a director, and I had the great fortune to do a final callback with him. It was down to 5 of us to play the lead in the tour of Pippin. Pippin's a musical that was done on Broadway, and I auditioned for him, and I didn't really know how big a legend he was at the time. I was a little bit naive. I was pretty new in New York, and so I did my audition, and he said, "Come here, kid." And he was about my size. He was a little wiry guy, and as you'll see if you ever see the movie All That Jazz, he wore all black and always had a cigarette in his hand, which I always think is funny that dancers smoke. It's like the biggest contrast. You'd never expect dancers who have to be in the best shape possible. They smoke.
Right.
But I don't know whether it helps their nerves or whatever, but he's got a cigarette in his hand, and he squatted down, and he said, "Come here." And I squatted down next to him, and he said, this goes back to how young I looked. He said, "You're great, kid." He said, "You're great." He said, "Come back in 4 or 5 years." He said, I can't cast you as Pippin in the show because I have to believe that you're old enough to be in bed with a woman who has a 5-year-old child." And he said, "You look closer in age to the 5-year-old child than you do to being in bed with a woman who's his mother." But it was beautiful to have this man say, "You're a great, kid." I mean, he loved what I did, but I was just too young.
Like that's going to be stuck like in the back of your head. You're on stage, a great kid.
Exactly. I was just too young looking for that part. But I've since learned what a legend Bob Fosse was, and what an honor, what a true honor it was to even meet him and have him see my work. So that was one of the experiences from my Broadway days.
Right. It's just I know it's an amazing experience to be in Broadway, but I've got stage fright. That's another reason why I just can't. I can't.
I'm telling you, Britt, we have to talk privately. I can help you get over stage fright.
Oh, because I just see a lot of people and I just go shy, just like, okay, shutting down,
well,
shutting down.
I'll give you an example. I have a girl who just joined my musical class in Los Angeles. She's a young Indian girl, and I think she's going to be a major star. She's already worked in movies in Bollywood and Hollywood, and she's 15. And she was sent to me because she loves acting, she loves dancing. She's apparently a brilliant dancer. And the problem is she gets terrible stage fright about singing for some reason. She doesn't have it when she dances. She doesn't have it when she acts. She's acted for thousands of people and danced for thousands of people. But when she sings, she gets stage fright. So I am working with her on that, and we will cure her of her stage fright.
Right.
And I've done it before with people. And so, we have to talk, Britt, you and I.
We have to. We would have to. We would have to. Right. Okay. Okay. I take your word on it, Mr. Gary. I take your word on
Okay.
it. I got you. I got you.
Okay.
Well, I guess that would, if we covered everything, I guess that would include, our interview for tonight.
All right. Well, I have to tell you, it's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a big pleasure for me as well because you're so amazing and you're motivational. This is very motivational.
Well, and I have to tell you, I think you're the first person from Alabama I've ever actually personally met. If you can believe that. All the years I've been alive, I don't think I've ever met somebody from Alabama.
Oh,
so
well, hey.
I am very excited to have completed that bucket list item now.
Right, to talk to a person from different states.
Exactly. Well, it's a pleasure, Britt.
It was a pleasure.
For doing this.
Thank you.